schedule, we have a focus session about the current problems and research directions. And one of the problems that we have is that I'm looking at you and you are very, very tired. Okay, I'm listening to you on your thoughts saying, I want to get out of here. Okay, I'm going to comply with that. If you don't mind, instead of having like this open discussion where everyone is a little bit already tired, I can see for your eyes, from your eyes. I was thinking of doing this a little bit informal. I'll just do a couple of comments that I have on top of my head I would like to share. Then I would like to go to every specific speaker for you to make a comment. So like stuff you like to see, future direction that you like to think that would be interesting, and then we'll call it a wrap. Are you okay with this?
Yes.
Okay. The boss says yes, so we can go. So for the discussion, I just to wrap up things here, we went from applications in agriculture, going from spectra, very specific cases, the intuition we get from old 20 years ago, 15 years ago, old artificial neural networks, how they work on the 20 years ago hardware. That's some of the intuition that I'd say the most experienced chemometricians and people that dealt with the first wave of neural networks feel, okay? So it's perfectly understandable that for those persons, one wave should be followed by another wave, okay? So for me, I am just riding the second wave. So I know the limitations of the past, but I can see my feeling is that there is more wave to ride here than in the past. I mean, the architectures have we learned some lessons from deep learning. Okay, the architectures are very modular nowadays, so it's just not like layer trade. No, we have modular layers that simulate certain transformations of the data, because in the end, all that this kind of neural networks do is like rotate your matrix, squish it, rotate, squish it, rotate, squish it in n dimensions. That's basically what they do, right? So nowadays we have like I'm trying to remember his name, but there's a famous paper in deep learning. It's called The Bitter Lesson by Richard Sutton, one of the fathers of reinforcement learning. And basically what he says is that scaling up your model works in deep learning. Okay, you just throw in more layers, more compute, more data, and it will get better. And all the examples we have seen in the past 5 years have been riding that paradigm. Okay, so most of the development in, for example, computer vision happened when people stopped crafting filters by hand. You know, those Gabor filters that people were like taking the first derivative and then multiplying, doing all those crafting by hand. When people found a way, and persons found a way, sorry, of doing end-to-end analysis on a neural network, we start to get good results. Okay, the loss, interpretation. So this is something that we need to get some some consensus on. For this type of application, at what point do I want to lose control about the interpretability of the system, or I am interested in 0.11% of accuracy, 99.9% of accuracy, or I want 80% of accuracy, but I want to know which band does what. Okay, so it's going to be a specific case by case. Okay. In terms, like someone was saying, I think this was Tom, I share your opinion, is that we don't have an architecture for learning spectrum. Okay, what we do is we use convolutions, right? Convolutions in images, they correlate spatial data. They usually don't correlate to RGB. Okay, so a spectrum is just an image of a point with M channels, right? And we do the convolution on the channels. So basically what we're doing is filtering a little bit. The neural networks learn how to filter some noise, some peak shifts. When we do the convolution and the pooling, it doesn't matter if it is 33.5 or 36, because it's on the same filter, it convolutes, pulls out, and it works fine. So it gets resilient to certain type of noise, okay? But there is not an architecture. And as far as my personal experience, people use deep learning models to solve their specific data set, okay? And they develop this model, they put one more layer, let's do convolutions, expanded convolutions, let's add, oh, what's trendy now? Attention layers. So let's put an attention layer, it works better than the convolution layer, and that's done like that. Why is that? Because we don't have like a massive data set or like a benchmark comprised of 4, 5, 6 different data sets that every group can use to develop architectures for those kinds of problems. That's what happened with ImageNet, as Hugo was saying. It was created a standard, right, that explores most of the variability of the problem you want to explain, and you work on that. That's difficult in chemometrics. Different apparatus, different samples, different resolutions. So I would say that our problem is probably more difficult than images, okay? But we were able to solve computer vision. So I believe that we can solve this as well. I don't know if we will solve it the way everyone likes, but I believe that we can solve it. NLPs, natural language processing, was very difficult until 5, 6, 7 years ago, till 2017. We will do long-range architectures. It didn't work that well. Someone invented transformers in Google. Now transformers are piled up together and you have ChatGPT. Is it coherent? Does it hallucinate? Yes. If you were texting ChatGPT and it replied on text to you, would you distinguish it from another person? Unless he says in the end, oh, in summary, blah, blah, blah. So that's his signature, right? So I would say that this was a huge problem and it's now basically solved, natural language processing. More on that, we can piggyback on that. We know that concepts, abstract concepts in natural language processing, for example, the word dog in English, or the word dog in Spanish, perro, or the word dog in Portuguese, cão, in the latent space of the model, they're all together. So the neural network learned a way to create a representation from different languages on the same space. Animals will be here, plants will be here, concepts, similar concepts will be represented in the same neighborhood, in the same manifold of the neural network latent space. That creates some hope in me that we can reproduce something analogous for spectra, okay? Those huge data sets that Martin was working, I believe that if we look into, if they disclose the architecture, if we look into the lower layer, no, if you just disclose the data, it will be enough. But if you look there, we would probably find these manifolds there, and there's probably some information to learn from there. Okay, so what I would like to say is that, I mean, I fully understand that we need to keep doing what we are doing because it works, and we have a whole industry mounted on that. PLS works. I want to do a model. I have 30 samples. PLS, PCA works. Do it, okay? But that doesn't mean that if I have an application in which I know that in a year I'll have 3,000 spectrum, that doesn't mean that I should not explore deep learning architectures aimed at that problem. And in the process, you learn, right? So I understand the skepticism of both sides. And it's a good skepticism because people developing deep learning models are always put in check. Nowadays, I am much more naggy on when I do revision of deep learning papers in NIR Chemometrics, because I know what I want to see in those papers. I want to see explanations, I want to see robustness, I want to see how the hyperparameter was optimized, because people don't optimize. Now, PLS is really easy to optimize, but when you have a neural architecture, you just say, oh, I have this and this and this layer with X, Y, Z neurons, and this is not as good as PLS. You didn't optimize the neural network. It takes time. You have to do Bayesian optimization, genetic algorithms, you have to try multiple layers. In the end, you will find one of the solutions that works better than PLS, right? And one of the things that I've get from experience is that you have multiple architectures, different hyperparameters, they give you almost the same solutions or nearby solutions. So there's not one architecture, but there's several. Okay. So I'm going too long now. So I would like to go first to Lola and Tom for thoughts on what we'd like to see or comments, etc.
Yes, I have to say I partially agree with you. Of course, I don't against deep learning, and I think it's something that is here with us, and we have to manage with our type of data, that in this case are spectral data, NIR or hyperspectral, and I think it could be useful for some cases when we have some needs that require this type of methods. But the problem, I think the problem is not just on the artificial neural network or deep learning. The problem is that if we don't work or if we don't use properly the methods, we are going to have bad results, or we are going to have an artifacts. So it's not good. We are overfitting the models. This could happen also with other techniques that have PLS. We can't. The problem is that with this type of methods, it's easier to override. It's easier because we have a more powerful tool, so we have to adjust a lot of parameters. So of course, the risk is higher. So we have to learn to manage this. I understand that it's useful, and we cannot go against the advance, because the artificial intelligence that is based most of the time in this type of methods is here. Now we are not going back. It is true that, but we have to be careful. The interpretation. I understand what you say before, okay, but it's not to have 99% or 80%. This is not the problem, because most of the time we are going to have the same results or similar results. The thing is that we must be sure that what we are doing is have a generalization, a good generalization problem. So we know how to do this. We know that we need to validate with real external sample the models, and if we don't do this, we have problem with neural network and with other methods. So this is the thing, but I think it could be very useful for many applications, and I think in the future, because now every day we are going to manage more data. in this case, this kind of tools can provide us many advantages. So we have to balance, and we have to try to learn and to learn to interpret the result, because in the past I worked mainly on NIR, and in the past NIR was a black box, and now it's not a black box. It's not mainly a transparent box, but it's more transparent. That's in the past. So maybe we have to go to advance in this direction. But this is my opinion. I don't know.
Tom is responsible for me doing what I'm doing. It was his paper with Shenhao.
Yes.
No, it was his paper with Shenhao that started me in this business.
So I'll keep this very brief because I'm failing and I'm sure lots of you are. I mean, my wish list is finding, we've got enormous new computing power, and I wish we were finding ways of using that to really incorporate the knowledge that we've got. We know a lot about spectroscopy, we know a lot about a lot of things, and the risk is we're not using them, we're chucking things that a complete black box. And the other thing, my other comment is we need to try and find ways of making the sides of that black box a bit more transparent, so we can actually see what's going on inside. Perhaps not understanding why it's working, but at least understanding how it's working. And I guess my other, so I think there's an enormous future. I think we need to do a lot more work before it really gets there. My only worry is that there are lots of people, lots of snake oil salesmen peddling instruments that don't actually work. And some of them are peddling those instruments together with neural net processing in the cloud of completely rubbish data. And if we're not careful, that's going to damage the hardware. We need to stamp it down. If we're not scared of lawsuits, we need to stamp down on them every time they raise them.
Federico.
Yes, I also will try to be very brief, and I will start with sort of a provocative statement, because I was like looking at that and I was thinking, okay, the title of this day was Deep Learning for NIR Chemometrics, but I think that actually it could have been equally well like Chemometrics for NIR Deep Learning, in the sense that I think that the day showed that probably I mean, in all the discussion, like if we take the fairest, honest, and best domain experience for the two domain, actually we get the best results, and we should be keeping in this way. So I think that like we should be open to contamination from one and the other field, but keeping our ground solid to put the best of our own experience in that.
Yeah,
That's it.
sure. Christian?
Oh, I have a long list. I've seen in some of the work that we've done in our group that when our spectral data are perfectly pre-processed, everything is very nice, then linearity comes into play, and we can stop using activation functions. We can just go through the whole network without any non-linearity, which is an interesting concept. So the degree of non-linearity in the data is very hard to know about, and it would be nice to have some kind of measure for that. And we mostly use the deep learning networks as benchmarks, because they typically get you to the max performance in some way, and then we have to try to be creative, make our interpretable models come as close as possible to that. We've also made like models that take the PLS first, and then we model the residuals, mostly like Hala said, and then that gives us a nice mixture. And I think sometimes we overplay the interpretability card. I think not all chemometric solutions are that stable that we can actually raise the flag that high. Sometimes we are over-interpreting things also in our field. So we should be careful. We could be keeping machines from that. And then the final one is that some of the things that have really worked well, especially in language processing and also to some extent in image processing, is embedding. So what you talk about, concepts being close to each other. But that takes a lot of data. So again, we need more data. Open. And open.
Martin, we need more data.
I was part of the last wave, so to say. And if I were doing that again, I would do a few things differently. One is I would work much closer with the people who understood the field, the Chemometrics field, people like UAlg and others, to incorporate it from the start in that A&N way. Because we were doing it on the side, we were not cooperating close enough, I think. I mean, hopefully I catch that a little since then, but you know, that was a tough start because it didn't fit with the rest of the community. And another problem I saw early on was that there were so many people that wanted to try it, and they did very basic mistakes, and they wrote papers, and the word was that this is not really working, but in my world, it's been working all the time, very good. So there's been a misunderstanding of it as well, that easily happens when it sort of the wave starts. Everybody tries it, and few people really get it right. And
Low-hanging fruit comes first, right?
yeah, and then there is a lot of misunderstanding, and then the wave dies out before it was really utilized to the maximum. So these are things I would have looked out more for if I were in the first wave from the start again with my knowledge I have today.
Jaime is not here. Ugo, do you want to add something?
Yeah, three quick things. Two of them I mentioned actually during the break for people. So definitely go for big open data sets, like not only computer vision is happening, but also in biology, you know, the system where AlphaFold was trained, it was a protein data bank data set that biologists created during decades, and different labs contributed with more experimental data to this, so this was instrumental. Second thing is like look more into the community that does speech and audio processing, because they also look at frequency domains. So they do Fourier transforms, and then the machine learning on top of this is also frequency. And they have, you know, decade-long experience of using machine learning in this kind of data. And they also have the problem of different measurement instruments, like microphones can be different and so on. Can be noisy environments. People can be saying the same thing, but they have different accents and so on. So it's also same kind of complexity, right? And then they look still at frequency domain. In terms of the explainability, I just think it's not such a dichotomy. Like you can still, I was mentioning in the break, if you think of self-driving cars, like a Tesla is like seeing the images and trying to steer the steering wheel and accelerator brake. If you just train it to do that, it's really a black box and there's no, you cannot understand anything. But what they do is actually to force one of the intermediate representations or the output of the network to be, show me what you are understanding about the world, position of the cars, of all charge velocities, the distances and so on. So this makes it a lot more interpretable. You can also now give much more detailed supervision of what you want to the neural network to do, and it's much more debate. You can debug the system, because if you notice didn't see this car, now you have some actionable thing you can do, rather than okay, turn right rather than left, and now what do I know about this? So interpretability can come from that. Just it's like our brains are not interpretable. I don't know what's inside your brain, but by forcing you to make statements or show me that you understand this, it becomes interpretable. So you can also ask neural networks to that, either generate text that describe this, or make stronger predictions rather than just a final thing. So I don't think you can still train things end to end, but I think you can still get it.
We had a good commentary with treatment as a student, right?
Sorry?
So, yeah, I will say, this is like, when we do an exam with a student, that's what force them to do, right?
Yeah,
To explain,
Like,
or intermediate reason.
you have no way to check, right? If the brain of the student understands it, like, okay, show me some measure.
Marina?
Okay, I will discuss another aspect. I mean, because I don't want to to repeat things that were already pointed out. I agree with Federico. I think we can have a lot to exchange. But I have this feeling that your example of the natural language, no, with the dog. Okay, why you can do this association? Because you know the vocabulary. So if you don't have the Turkish vocabulary at all, can you predict how dog is in Turkish? I think maybe not. So that's my question mark, because I don't think that you use, I mean, since you don't use model, I think that you are not able to do inference or prediction too far. So I have this feeling, maybe it's wrong, that you work because you have a more or less a finite universe. So if I have to translate this to the spectrum, what I'm thinking is maybe, I mean, if we could share all the spectrum that many different people in many different countries have acquired on, I don't know, for instance, wheat sample, probably we come close to this finite universe. And this may work very well, and maybe we do not need to acquire, to do any modeling anymore, because we only need to predict the new spectra. So in this sense, I think it could be worked to find, but I don't think that this can substitute the situation in which our universe is very far from being finite or known. So I mean, yeah. So my feeling is this one. These are tools that are good to dig the known. The known in the sense that they already acquired in terms of data, shapes, and whatever. The traditional modeling, if we want to call it this name, is good to do inference, so to predict the unknown. And these are both the jobs that in the nowadays society are useful. So probably, as you say, one problem is that at the moment, as a community, we do not share so much our experimental data. So this could be something we could aim to do. I agree with you. And the other comment is that going to Tom, I mean, more transparency for me in the method needs that probably up to now, people was not so much interested in doing this. But I think we would like, especially with spectra, to see how the spectra becomes like, a bit like Tom was showing in each step, because this will help, I think, to improve.
Get a mental model how the thing is put in.
No, but also would help, I think, to improve what you call the architecture, because having more knowledge of what is going on, then you understand if it is something really new, it's not how far you can go with one tool, how you can integrate another one. So you need to look at this, no?
Yeah, that's why I was saying that we need to study thoroughly the architecture. We need to dissect it and see what's happening layer to layer, and see if we should expect something like a peak to appear here and doesn't appear. Why should I put something else? So yes, I agree with you. That's why we need like this.
But I also wonder, I mean, do we really need this? Because I mean,
that's what happened in other fields in order to develop the architectures that we have now.
Yeah,
to
okay,
solve the
but
problem.
in this architecture, there is the idea that you have a flow, no? So you go in one direction like this.
That's one architecture. They're graph neural networks that have a different architecture, and they can solve different types of problems.
Okay.
They could be
Okay,
adapted to spectra as well. So there are many architectures. We here usually talk about convolution and MLPs. So it's just like forward and the back propagation distributes the error, forward, back propagation. But there are different types, there are different paradigms of training the networks. So that's advanced. We usually go for the algorithms that we can master. Those are the easy ones, right? Jean-Michel? You want to comment something?
No,
No.
speaking.
Okay,
I totally agree.
okay. Harold?
I think this has been a great meeting, and I think that the AI community, the hard-nosed modeling people and the soft, motivated modeling people have been too much away from each other, and we've been drinking beer with our own kind and talk bad about the others. We have to be much more friendly and much more curious about each other and much less polite. Far too polite. We need to treat each other seriously and give each other a hug and invite each other to meetings. Well, I'm not pessimistic. I'm very optimistic about the future for high-speed, high-dimensional spectroscopy. I think we need to add the time domain, since I'm now at control theory. This is the only one here who doesn't know anything of control theory, but I'm amazed at what the time can do and dynamics, because there's so much structure coming from the time domain. We lack that in not everybody. But I think that we chemometricians, it is our responsibility to talk seriously to the people who misuse chemometrics. As he could wear a black box, when in fact it is possible to understand more than just see that it works, and talk with people who don't use have a small data set and ill design, lack of design of their training data. It's our responsibility. It is not the differential equation people's responsibility. It is not the machine learning people. Then it is the machine learning people responsibility to talk with people who oversell and who will create another winter if they're not careful. We can't do it. People won't listen to us. We will just be seen as old-fashioned. But machine learning people, experts, have a responsibility, a social responsibility to stop the misuse. Doesn't mean that it is too bad to do AI. It just means that there's a lot of oversold solutions, like confirmed preferred. And then the differential equation people have the hardest time, because their responsibility to talk their friends into open up, because there are 300 years, 400 years hypothetic deductive thinking and exactness thinking from Galileo and onwards that has been an academic ideal, as if that were the only way to do science. Thank you very much. And there's a lot of academic snobbery. They won't listen to people like me, certainly not. And they probably won't listen to people in the AI community. But they may listen to people like Achim and others here who can look them straight in the eye and say, hey, there's more to it than what you're doing. So thank you very much.
How do you also know this biomedical vibrational spectroscopy community? And actually, I entered this community around 2000, and then people, before people had actually started to use neural networks. It was more like this manually configured neural networks, and then they started with chemometrics and like a more broad range of methods. And they had their data sets, and they got models, and so we talked a lot, and I all asked exactly the same question. I mean, could you share data? Because there was one group having 100 patients making a model for colon cancer. I mean, probably 50 samples. And then another group doing this and whatever. And then this deep learning, machine learning, deep learning new period came. So then they went over to these methods, same data set, so again, new data set. And not much happened actually since, I mean, there's still not a method out there which is used in any hospital. I mean, nobody has come to a point where this has been used. And now actually I was invited in autumn, well, before Christmas, to a meeting in UK, in UK network. Now we started actually to say, okay, we need to understand more again of the data and this hybrid modeling and so I think I mean, to me it's really not only showing all this data. I think there's also a lot of problem. I mean, the question is, and I guess it's the same with NIR data, is this information present in the spectra such that we can clearly separate it, for example, from when you go from one instrument to another, when you change a little bit the conditions for acquiring a spectrum? And I guess in most cases, the question is no. So you need to standardize your method in a good way, actually, to have the information present and that not being hidden, and therefore also a neural network will not find it. And I believe, at least in the biomedical vibration spectroscopy, I'm close to 100% sure that actually most of the models are completely overfitted. So if you would actually move them to something new, spectra acquired with a different instrument by a different operator, it will not work. So therefore, I actually don't understand why people use something else than PLS or whatever, as long as they are on this level. And if you have a medium spectra with reference data, then you can start, they come from diverse areas and you have actually also different data sets, you can check this. Then I would understand actually people using neural networks and deep convolutional neural network. For this, I don't see the point. I mean, is it because I want to publish a paper where my error is probably 5% lower if I use deep convolutional neural network, but I know it's most likely because of overfitting. And I guess that's in most cases, I think in this community it was like this, that they're putting away another 5 years now where we could publish the same data, you can say, because it's not really standardized and I cannot move my model from one instrument to the other. So it's because of this. Then I think it's stupid. Then it's much better to use a very simple model where I understand what I have. So that's my
Would you want to have some closing thoughts?
Me?
Yes, of course.
I don't know so what to say. Well, maybe I can. After listening to the Martin's talk, my first feeling was, oh, everything is done. What are we doing here? Because actually, if he is predicting for sausages and for everything else, and it gives all that predictive power, then my first thought is it is really solved. But of course, maybe you are working on an ideal environment with your instruments very well calibrated, you have all the controlled conditions, and so maybe that's why it works so well. Because when we start working with these Chemometrics tools, we worked with a spectrometer that was not so good, and I couldn't have those models so good as I saw in the literature, and we did not ship it. But then I could work with a good spectrometer, and I got good results. So this neural network approach, like Wu was saying, I think what we should really aim for is to find that representation of multiple instruments with multiple uncertainties, and from that to build that universal model, not only on but instruments,
Why not?
All I do. So maybe that's it. That's that's the main thing I take from here.
So we are 3 minutes before, so the closing session will take 3 minutes. Okay. Bella, do you want to add something to? I have a couple of words just before, if you want to.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't want to say anything more because I think people yes, they are a bit tired about this. Okay, just to say thank you. I think we are enjoy this discussion, this workshop, because always to see different perspective of the things is good. We have to think about what we have here, what we have discussed this afternoon. Again, I would like to thank Dario because really we have enjoyed. We have everything that just to let you know that he has been twice 2 days without sleeping well because he was very worried about this. So we can say that everything is
Thank you.
perfect. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Then I'll just take your words, and I thank the team that was behind me, helping me with this. Moigera helped me a lot during this 50-50 with me. Ana, Cavaco, Raquel, Rosa, and Antonio that were outside making sure everything would be okay when we left and helping with everything. So I want to thank them before I forget because they were really, really helpful. And officially for the camera, I want to thank the University of Algarve for sponsoring part of the material. Thank you, magnificent rector, for the support. And I would like to thank sensorFINT, of course, huge part of this, and City Hall of São Brás de Portugal, my hometown, which sponsored our lunches. So thank you very much for coming, and for those of you who are going to the dinner, see you later. And if you want to catch up, the sunset on the beach is like 3 kilometers away.
Okay.
Enjoy. Thank you very much.